All right, ready to dive into Atomic Habits?
Let's do it.
We're working off of that YouTube video summary of the book. You know, the one by James Clear. Everyone seems to be talking about it.
It's definitely been making waves.
So what's the big deal with these Atomic Habits? Is it like a secret formula for like instant success?
Well, not instant exactly, but James Clear does a great job of breaking down how small changes can add up to something pretty amazing.
Kind of like a compound interest.
Exactly. Like, what if we could apply that same principle not just to our finances, but to every part of our lives?
Okay, I'm listening, but I gotta be honest. Sometimes those tiny changes just feel so, well, tiny. Like, will they really make a difference?
Ah, that's where the British cycling team comes in. They had this philosophy. They called it aggregation of marginal gains.
Mhm.
Basically, they focused on making 1% improvements in every single thing.
Oh, yeah, the video mentioned that. They ended up, like, crushing the competition. It's impressive, but honestly, was it really those tiny tweaks? Or was there something else going on?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of Clear's argument. It wasn't just the individual changes themselves, but the mindset they created. By constantly looking for those small improvements, they developed this culture of always striving to be better. Like always looking for an edge, even in the most unexpected places.
So it's not just about, like, lighter tires or whatever. It's about creating a whole mindset of constant improvement.
You got it. And that's the essence of Atomic Habits. It's about those tiny, consistent improvements that compound over time.
Like building momentum. Each small win fuels the next one.
Exactly. It's like an upward spiral of positive change.
I like the sound of that. So where do we start?
Well, Clear talks a lot about the connection between habits and identity. He argues that the habits that really stick are the ones that are rooted in who we believe we are.
So it's not just about wanting to, say, lose weight. It's about seeing yourself as a healthy person.
Exactly. There's a story in the book about Brian Clark, an entrepreneur. He finally stopped biting his nails by getting regular manicures.
Interesting. So he shifted his identity from a nail biter to someone who, like, takes pride in their appearance.
Precisely. He changed the story he was telling himself about who he was.
I like that. So how do we actually start building those identity-based habits? Is it all about willpower?
Willpower definitely plays a role, but Clear suggests we shift our focus from goals to systems.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, goals are great for setting a direction, but they can lead to what's called a yo-yo effect.
What's that?
It's that thing where you put in a ton of effort to reach a goal, then once you hit it, you kind of relax and fall back into old habits. Does that sound
Oh,
familiar?
yeah, all the time. I set a goal, I hit it, and then boom, back to square one.
Hmm.
So how do systems help?
Think of a basketball coach. Their goal might be to win a championship, but they don't just focus on that one game.
Right.
They focus on building a system,
Mm.
practices, drills, team dynamics, that kind of stuff. The system is what allows for consistent long-term success.
So it's not just about winning once, it's about playing the game well, consistently.
Exactly. It's about building habits that support the kind of person we want to become, rather than just chasing a specific result.
Okay.
And that's where the power of small, consistent actions really shines.
Makes sense. But what about those times when we're putting in the work but, like, not seeing any progress? Those frustrating plateaus, ugh, don't get me started on plateaus.
Oh, I hear ya. Plateaus are definitely a thing.
They're the worst. It's like I hit a wall and just want to give up.
The key to breaking through those plateaus is trusting the process. Clear compares it to like a gardener patiently tending a garden. You plant the seeds, nurture them, but it takes time for them to sprout.
So even if I don't see those sprouts popping up right away, something's happening beneath the surface.
Right. You're building potential, laying the groundwork for future growth.
Okay, that's a comforting thought. So how do these habits actually form? Like, what's the science behind it?
Clear explains it with what he calls the habit loop. It's a four-stage cycle.
Hmm.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
I think I remember that from the video. It starts with a cue, which triggers a craving for some kind of reward, which leads to a response, the habit itself, and then the reward, which kind of reinforces the whole loop.
Exactly. And the thing is, a lot of this is happening below our conscious awareness.
Hmm.
Think about how easily you check your phone when you hear that notification sound. You don't even think about
Oh
it.
man, that's me all the time. Or like when I'm stressed and I just automatically reach for a snack.
Right. You're not even consciously deciding to do it. It's just a habit. It's that reward, that little hit of dopamine that keeps us coming back for more.
Dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, right? So how do we, like, break free from those unhealthy habits and actually build good ones?
Well, one of the key things Claire talks about is the power of our environment.
Hmm.
Our surroundings can have a huge impact on our habits, often without us even realizing it.
Okay, so like if I surround myself with healthy snacks, I'm more likely to make healthy choices.
Exactly. It's not just about willpower. It's about setting yourself up for success. He gives this example from Massachusetts General Hospital, where they did this experiment in the cafeteria.
The one where they moved the soda.
Yeah, they just moved the soda to a less visible spot and put water bottles closer to the food. And guess what? People started drinking less soda and more water without anyone even telling them to.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So just by changing the environment, they change people's behavior.
Exactly. And that's something we can all do in our own lives.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? Like, how do we design our environment to support those good habits?
There are a lot of different techniques. One of the simplest is called habit stacking.
Habit stacking.
It's basically linking a new habit to an existing one. Like, let's say you want to start meditating, but you struggle to find the time.
Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to try meditation.
Well, you could try adding a 5-minute meditation right after you brush your teeth in the morning.
Ah, so I'm piggybacking off of something I already do every day.
Exactly. You're using that existing routine as an anchor for the new habit.
I like that. Makes it seem less daunting. What about habits that don't really fit into my existing routine?
That's where a technique called verbalization comes in.
Verbalization, you mean like talking to myself?
In a way, yeah. It's about talking through your actions as you're doing them. Saying things out loud increases your awareness
Yeah.
and makes the action more real.
So if I'm trying to resist that cookie, I could say, like, I'm choosing to have a piece of fruit instead.
That's the idea. You're making a conscious choice, and saying it out loud reinforces that choice.
It's like I'm holding myself accountable.
Exactly. And it creates a pause, a moment of reflection, which can be all it takes to make a different choice.
That's pretty cool. Are there other strategies like that that can help make those choices more deliberate?
Definitely. One of the most powerful techniques is called implementation intentions. It's where you create specific if-then plans for your habits.
So, like, if it's 7 p.m., then I'll go for a walk.
Exactly. By pre-committing to a specific action in a specific situation, you're reducing the reliance on willpower in the moment. Because, let's face it, willpower can be a bit flaky.
Oh, tell me about it. So these implementation intentions, they're like setting up a system that automatically guides me towards the behavior I want.
Exactly. You're basically taking the decision-making out of the equation.
I like that. So to sum it all up, it sounds like building good habits is not about being perfect or relying on willpower alone. It's about being strategic, understanding how our brains work, and setting ourselves up for success.
You got it. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. It's about building the identity you want, one small, consistent action at a time.
So it's not about beating myself up for slip-ups, but about focusing on the long game.
Exactly. Those small actions are like casting votes for the kind of person you want to become.
I love that analogy. It makes it feel a lot less overwhelming.
It's all about progress, not perfection.
So, dear listener, what's one small habit you could implement today that would be a vote for the person you want to become? Just something small but meaningful. Think about it.
While you're pondering that, let's move on to another interesting aspect of habit formation. Have you ever heard of the concept of friction?
Friction, like making things harder. But wait, didn't we just talk about making good habits easier?
We did, and that's still important. But there's also this idea of increasing friction for the behaviors we want to avoid.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. It's like putting obstacles in the way of those bad habits.
Exactly. So instead of having that bag of chips sitting right on the counter, tempting you, you could put it away in the cupboard.
Makes sense. Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. It's not about eliminating temptation entirely, but about making those unhealthy choices less accessible.
So it's like building in a little think twice moment.
Exactly. So instead of automatically scrolling through social media when you're bored, you can put your phone in another room and pick up a book instead.
Okay, I like that. It's about consciously choosing a different path.
Exactly. And it's not just about our physical environment. It's also about our mental and emotional environment.
Okay, so like the company we keep, the information we consume, the thoughts we allow ourselves to dwell on.
Exactly. All of those things contribute to our overall environment and can either support or hinder our progress.
So it's about being mindful of all those influences and making sure they're aligned with our goals.
Absolutely.
So what about those times when we're outside of our carefully crafted bubble? Like when we're faced with temptations that are hard to resist.
That's where a strategy called temptation bundling can come in handy.
Temptation bundling. That sounds kind of dangerous.
It can be, but it could also be a really effective tool for staying on track. Remember how we talked about our brains being wired for immediate gratification?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's like it's so much easier to choose Netflix over going for a run, even though I know exercise is better for me in the long run.
Exactly. So, temptation bundling is about using that wiring to our advantage. It's about pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay, so give me an example.
Let's say you love listening to podcasts, but you also know you should be spending more time cleaning your house. You can make a rule that you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're cleaning.
So I'm basically bribing myself to do the thing I need to do by pairing it with something I enjoy.
Exactly. It's kind of like a reward system. You're training your brain to associate the positive feeling of listening to your podcast with the activity of cleaning.
I can see how that would make even the most mundane tasks a little more bearable.
Exactly. It's about finding those little rewards that make those necessary tasks more appealing. And it brings us back to the importance of focusing on the immediate benefits of our habits, even if they're small.
Right. It's not always about those big, long-term goals. Sometimes it's about those small moments of enjoyment that keep us motivated along the way.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to make the journey itself enjoyable, not just the destination.
That's a great point. So, what about those times when even those small rewards aren't enough? Like when we just don't feel motivated at all? What do we do then?
Well, that's where understanding the power of our why comes in.
Our why.
Yeah, like why are we doing this? What's the ultimate goal?
So, it's not just about losing weight, it's about wanting to feel more energetic and confident.
Exactly. It's about connecting to the deeper meaning behind your habits. And it's not enough to just know your why intellectually. You need to feel it.
So, how do we do that? How do we make that why more real?
One powerful technique is to visualize your desired future self. Like actually picture yourself living that ideal life.
So, like, I can imagine myself waking up, feeling energized and ready to take on the day.
Exactly. And don't just see it, feel it. Engage all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Make it as vivid and real as possible.
I'm starting to get chills just thinking about it.
And another powerful technique is to write down your why and keep it somewhere you'll see it every day.
Oh, okay, like on my bathroom mirror or something.
Exactly. That way, you're constantly reminding yourself of what you're working towards.
It's like having a little motivational pep talk every day.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey. There will be ups and downs, successes, and setbacks.
So it's about celebrating those small wins and not beating ourselves up when we stumble.
You got it. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Having a support system can make a huge difference.
True. Having people to cheer us on and hold us accountable can be a game changer.
Absolutely. It's like having a team of people all rowing in the same direction.
Love that analogy. So as we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to encourage you, dear listener, to think about your support system. Who are those people you can lean on? And how can you be a source of support for others as well? We're all in this together, right?
We are. Now, as we wrap up this first part, I want to leave you with this challenge. What's one small habit you can implement today that would make your future self proud?
It doesn't have to be anything big or drastic, just something small but meaningful.
Remember, those small actions consistently applied are what create lasting change.
Absolutely. So choose your habit, take that first step, and see where this journey takes you. We'll be right back to dive deeper into atomic habits and explore those tricky plateaus we all face on the road to self-improvement. Okay, so we've talked about setting up our environment for success. But, life happens. What about when we're, out in the real world? We can't always control everything around us.
That's so true. You can't always control your environment, but you can control your mindset. Remember those implementation intentions we talked about?
The if-then plans.
Exactly. Those can be super helpful in those unpredictable situations. Like, let's say you're trying to eat healthier, but, you've got a bunch of social events coming up, lots of tempting treats and stuff.
Ugh, yeah, that's always a challenge.
Right. So you could create an intention, like, if I'm offered dessert and I don't really want it, then I'll politely decline.
So I'm prepared. I have a plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not relying on willpower in the heat of the moment.
Smart. Okay, that makes sense. So what about rewards? How do those fit into the whole habit building thing?
Rewards are huge. They're a key part of the habit loop.
Right. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Yep, you got it. And the problem is, a lot of those unhealthy habits offer instant gratification. But the benefits of good habits, those often take a while to show up.
So true. It's hard to resist that instant gratification. Like, I know I should eat the salad, but that pizza just looks so good.
It all comes down to dopamine, that little neurotransmitter that makes us feel good. Our brains are wired to prioritize those immediate rewards.
Ah, dopamine, that sneaky little devil.
Right. So the key to building good habits is to find ways to make them more immediately satisfying. One strategy is to, focus on the intrinsic rewards, the things that feel good in the moment.
Okay, I think I get it. So, like, instead of focusing on the long-term goal of losing weight, I could focus on how good it feels to move my body during a workout.
Exactly. Or how much more energy you have after eating a healthy meal. Pay attention to those positive feelings. They're there.
Okay, I can try that. What about when those positive feelings aren't enough? Like when I hit a plateau and I'm just feeling stuck.
Plateaus are tough.
Yeah.
They're a totally normal part of the process, but they can be super frustrating.
Tell me about it. I've given up on so many things because I hit a plateau and just lost motivation.
Yeah, it's easy to get discouraged. But it's important to remember that progress isn't always linear. Think of it like you're planting a seed.
Okay.
You might not see the sprout right away,
Right.
but it's growing underground, developing its root system.
So even if I'm not seeing big changes on the outside, something's happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. You're building that foundation.
Okay, I can see that. But how do I know if I'm actually making progress? Or if I'm, like, totally on the wrong track?
That's where tracking comes in. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a simple way to monitor your consistency, like marking off days on a calendar or using an app.
Okay, so I'm not obsessing over the details, but just kind of keeping tabs on how I'm doing.
Exactly. It's about creating that visual reminder of your progress. And it can be helpful to track your slip-ups too.
Wait, you mean actually write down the times when I mess up? Why would I want to do that?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it can be super helpful for identifying patterns. Like maybe you're more likely to skip your workout on certain days of the week, or you tend to reach for those unhealthy snacks when you're feeling stressed.
So it's about figuring out what triggers those bad habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you know what your triggers are, you can start to develop strategies for dealing with them.
So if I know I always overeat when I'm stressed, I could try finding healthier ways to cope with stress, like exercise or meditation.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, anticipating those challenges, and having a plan in place.
This is starting to make a lot of sense. So it's not about being perfect. It's about being aware of our patterns and having a plan for when things get tough.
You got it. And this leads to another important point, self-compassion.
Self-compassion, isn't that a little, I don't know, fluffy?
It might sound that way, but it's crucial for long-term success. We're all human. We all make mistakes.
Yeah, that's true.
So instead of beating yourself up when you slip up, treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend.
So instead of saying, oh, I'm so weak, I can't believe I ate that whole pizza, I could say, like, okay, I made a choice I'm not proud of, but I'm not going to let it derail my progress. I'll make a better choice next time.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging those slip-ups without letting them define you.
Okay, I like that. It's about progress, not perfection. But what about those bad habits that just seem to creep back in even when we're trying our best to get rid of them?
Well, remember, a lot of those habits are operating below our conscious awareness. That habit loop is powerful.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So one way to break that loop is to increase your awareness of the cues that trigger those bad habits.
So if I always check my phone when I'm bored, boredom is the cue.
Right. And once you know the cue, you can start to create alternative responses.
So instead of automatically reaching for my phone, I could, like, pick up a book or go for a walk.
Exactly. You're breaking that automatic response.
I can try that. And hopefully over time, those new, healthier responses will become automatic.
Exactly. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely possible to rewire those neural pathways. And that brings us back to that connection between habits and identity.
Right. It's about becoming the kind of person who embodies those good habits naturally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And every time you make a choice that aligns with your desired identity, you're reinforcing that identity. It's like you're casting a vote for the person you want to become.
Okay, I love that analogy. But sometimes those votes feel so small, Like, do they really matter?
They do. They all add up. But it's important to have a clear vision of your why. Why are you doing this? What's the ultimate goal?
Right. It's not just about the habit itself. It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it's not enough to just know your why intellectually. You need to feel it.
Okay, so how do we do that?
One way is to visualize your future self.
Hmm.
Like really imagine yourself living that life you want.
So if I'm working on building healthy eating habits, I can imagine myself feeling confident and energized in my body, like really feeling it.
Exactly. Engage all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel?
Wow, okay, that's powerful. And is there anything else I can do to like keep that why front and center?
You could write it down and put it somewhere you'll see it every day.
Yeah.
On your bathroom mirror, your fridge, the wallpaper on your phone.
Like a constant reminder of what I'm working towards.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Everyone's journey is different.
Okay, so I need to stop comparing myself to other people. That's a big one for me.
It's so easy to get caught up in that comparison trap. But it's important to focus on your own progress, celebrate your own wins, and be kind to yourself along the way.
So true. And it helps to have a support system, right? People who understand what we're going through and can cheer us on,
Absolutely. Having that support can make a huge difference.
like a team of cheerleaders. So, as we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to encourage you, dear listener, to think about those people in your life who can support you on this journey. And remember, you can be that source of support for others too.
We're all in this together.
Exactly. Now, as we get ready to wrap things up, I want to leave you with a challenge. What's one small habit you can implement today that would make your future self proud?
It can be anything, just something small but meaningful, something that aligns with your goals and values.
And remember, consistency is key. Those small actions done consistently over time are what create lasting change.
So what will it be? Choose your habit, and let's see where it takes you.
We'll be right back to talk about those pesky plateaus and how to navigate them with grace and resilience. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one thing I still want to talk about. Those pesky plateaus.
Ah, yes, the plateau.
It's like, I'm doing everything right, but the needle's not moving. It's so frustrating.
It definitely can be. Plateaus are totally normal. It's like that phase where you're putting in the work, but you're not seeing those, big changes.
And it's so easy to just like give up at that point.
I hear ya. But here's the thing. It's important to understand what's actually happening during a plateau. Imagine an iceberg, right?
Okay.
Above the surface, you don't see much. But below the waterline, there's this massive foundation being built.
So even though I'm not seeing those results, something's happening.
Exactly. You're strengthening those neural pathways, building resilience, all those things that are essential for long-term change.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we push through that phase when it feels like we're just spinning our wheels?
One thing that can help is to shift your focus back to the process. Instead of fixating on the outcome, remember why you started in the first place. Find the joy in the journey.
So like instead of obsessing over the number on the scale, I could just enjoy how good it feels to move my body.
Exactly. Or how much more energy you have after eating a healthy meal.
Right. It's those little wins that keep us going.
Absolutely. And remember, progress isn't always like a straight line.
It's more like a winding path.
Yeah, more like that. There will be ups and downs. The key is to keep showing up, even when you don't see those big dramatic changes. Consistency is everything.
Okay, consistency. Got it. But what about those plateaus that just drag on and on? How do we know if we're truly on the right track? Or if we need to, I don't know, switch things up?
That's where feedback comes in. Are you tracking your progress? Are you noticing any shifts, even small ones?
Right. Tracking can help, but sometimes I'm not sure if I'm really making progress or just kidding myself.
It can be helpful to get an outside perspective.
Mm.
Talk to a friend, a mentor, maybe even a coach.
Oh, yeah, like someone who can be objective and see things that I might be missing.
Exactly. They can offer insights and help you stay accountable. And don't be afraid to experiment a bit. What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's okay to try different things and see what sticks.
Absolutely. This whole habit building thing, it's a process of learning and refining. There's no magic formula.
So no magic formula. It's more about finding what works for me, for my life.
Exactly. And being willing to adapt and adjust along the way.
Okay, I like that. Makes it seem less daunting. So as we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of, I don't know, possibility. Building better habits, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Got it. And remember, it's about the journey, all those twists and turns, and yes, even those plateaus.
Exactly. And those small changes we've been talking about, those can really add up.
They can. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and never stop learning.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits. We hope you found it helpful. And until next time, remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Keep those atomic habits firing.